Learning never ends makes a valid point that before God told Israel to give their tithes, he rebukes the priests and he says, don't forget to read chapter 2 about the priests. Not only chapter 2, but brother, chapter 1, God actually begins the book of Malachi with rebuking the priest because they were offering blemish offerings and there was no truth on their mouth. So God rebukes the priest. But what I think you and others have failed to recognize is despite the fact that the priest needed to improve, needed to repent, God still told the congregation in Malachi 3 to bring the tithes into the storehouses. And who was the one responsible for the storehouses? The very priest that he rebukes in chapter 1 and chapter 2. The point is this: you cannot make an excuse about not tithing because you don't like preachers. You understand? God's rebuking the preachers of Israel, yet he's still demanding the congregation to give their tithes and offerings. I get dozens of people writing to me saying, hey, what about those greedy pastors? What about these bad pastors? In other words, they're saying because they sin, I get to sin too. No. There's no excuses. So the point is, God still deals with the congregation and tells them they have to bring their tithes and offerings into the storehouse, the very place that the priests handle it. So God is not saying to Israel, look, until the priests get their act straight, you don't have to tithe. You can still rob me. God doesn't say that. He doesn't say wait for them to change before you repent. He's saying both need repenting, the priest and the congregation. Listen, I know a lot of pastors and ministers. I get to know them, and I can tell you for a fact that the vast majority of them are good people who love the Lord, who have sacrificed their lives, who could be earning more money in the secular world, but they have given their lives to ministry and they have become servants. I know the vast majority. Are there bad apples in the ministry? Of course there's bad apples, but aren't there bad apples among doctors? Do you stop seeing doctors because there's some bad ones? Aren't there bad apples in the attorney field, but you still need attorneys? My point is this: you can't simply say because there's some bad ministers that gives you an excuse to rob God. The point is this: God's going to deal with those ministers that are not living the way they should live, who are not preaching the truth, not telling the truth. And that was really the great criticism that God had toward the priest. He says, there's no truth in your mouth. But yet here I am telling you the truth about tithing, and you condemn me for telling the truth. This is the point. Ministers need to be bold and tell the truth. And those who are afraid of the congregation, yes, God has a word for them. But does that mean you, as a member of the church, you don't have to give? And quit making excuses saying, look at all these rich preachers on television. Stop. You aren't even giving to those teachers on television. So why are you making excuses? For every television preacher that makes good money, there's 10,000 that are sacrificing in your hometown for you. I mean, do you see how ridiculous it becomes? You are going to rob God because you don't like what you see on TV. That doesn't even make sense. So listen to me. Yes, I like what Never Stop Learning points out. But simply because God needed to deal with the priests did not exempt the congregation of Israel from the tithe.